memorize scriptures. When you have those memorized, they'll come up to you to where you can hear from God. So we're going to use those triggers to say, I'm going to hear from God, but I'm going to do it by being still, by slowing down, by being quiet. Mother Teresa of Calcutta said this: we need to find God, and God cannot be found in noise and restlessness. God is the friend of silence. See how nature, trees, flowers, grass grow in silence. See the stars, the moon, the sun, how they move in silence. We need silence to be able to touch our souls. So what do we need to do? We need to, secondly, create an atmosphere for a whisper. The third thing is this: we need to avoid turmoil to hear the whisper. We need to avoid turmoil to hear the whisper. 1 Kings 19:11b says this: and a great and strong wind tore into the mountains and broke the rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in a fire. All around this guy is turmoil. In your notes, turmoil is a state or condition of extreme confusion, agitation, or commotion. See, in order to hear the whisper, sometimes you have to do a little self-examination. Sometimes you create the atmosphere, but in the atmosphere, you ask God, is my life full of commotion? Let me just use this word. Is my life full of drama? Is my life full of drama? And in that drama, is there anything that I can control? Is there any way that I can control? Is there any way that I can get the drama out of my life? Now, a lot of times you have kids, you have life that comes at you. You have what's called My Name is Russell. And we're going to watch a little clip that kind of shows how that happens. Dave's going to share that with us.
Good afternoon. My name is Russell, and I am a wilderness explorer in Tribe 54. Sweat Lodge 12. Are you in need of any assistance today, sir?
No.
I could help you cross the street.
No.
I could help you cross your yard.
No.
I could help you cross your porch.
No.
Well, I gotta help you cross something.
No, I'm doing fine.
Good afternoon. My name is Russell, and I am a wilderness explorer in Tribe 54.
Slow down.
Sweat Lodge 12.
Kid,
Are you in need of
thank
any
you,
assistance
but I don't need any
today?
help.
Al.
Sometimes life comes at you, and there's turmoil that's created outside of your control. Sometimes you want to sit and be quiet, and things come your way. I'm going to let the scriptures speak to us today. Galatians 5 from the Message Bible says this: it is obvious what kind of, and this is of the life that's turmoil, the life that's drama, the life that's not a God ordained life for us. It is obvious what kind of life develops out of trying to get your own way all the time. Repetitive, loveless, cheap sex, a stinking accumulation of mental and emotional garbage, frenzied and joyless grabs for happiness, trinket gods, magic show religion, paranoid loneliness, cutthroat competition, all-consuming yet never satisfied once, a brutal temper, an impotence to love or be loved, divided homes and divided lives, small-minded and lopsided pursuits, the vicious habit of depersonalize everyone into a rival, uncontrolled and uncontrollable addictions, ugly parodies of community. And then Paul says, I could go on. Basically what that scripture reference tells us, it's not God's way for our life. That's not the life that God chooses for us. I got a call yesterday from Carrie Shipkowski about doing a funeral this week for a young man who unfortunately died of a drug overdose, 17 years old. You know what? The thing about it is, that's not God's plan for our lives. To make choices and to put ourselves in positions to where we're not able to hear from God. To where each decision that we make could be a decision that unfortunately ends your life. Listen to God's way. Galatians 5:22 and 23. But what happens when we live God's way? He brings gifts into our lives, much the same way that fruit appears in an orchard. Things like affection for others, exuberance about life, serenity. We develop a willingness to stick with things, a sense of compassion in the heart, and a conviction that a basic holiness permeates things and people. We find ourselves involved in loyal commitments, not needing to force our way in life, able to marshal and direct our energies wisely. So in Elijah's case, he's doing his best. All this stuff is going on the outside, but there's something on the inside that's different. And he gets it. He really tunes in, and that's my last point. Tune in to hear the whisper. Tune in to hear the whisper. 1 Kings 19:12. And after the fire, a still small voice. You know, if you're listening to a radio station, or you want to listen to a radio station that's just one little number off, you're not going to be able to hear that radio station. But if you can tune in just one little notch, that radio station comes in on that frequency. And these are the things, and this is the way that we hear from God. We hear from God. Now, I'm going to qualify a few things here. Over the next few weeks, we're going to continue to examine this, the whispers of God. And there's some really important things to understand. But God speaks to us in many different ways. He speaks to us through books, through dreams, through a still small voice, by His Spirit. There's a lot of different things. My wife, she sometimes gets dreams that God will speak to her through dreams. Some people hear God like that. There's just ways that we do. But you can see this throughout the whole of Scripture. But here's what I don't want. Here's what I understand, because this stuff does happen. People get real weird with it. And you'll find a young man who will walk up to a young lady and say, God told me, what? That we're going to get married. Don't even know her. Or a young lady comes up to you. Listen, that's not how it works, okay? Nor is it to where you get someone who says, walk up to you and say, I have this great business idea, and I heard from God, and what we're going to do, we're going to use my business idea and your finances to start a new business. You know what? That's not from God. The things that we hear from God, they actually line up with Scripture. They actually line up with what's going on in Scripture. And as you create these atmospheres, as you sit before God, as you recognize your need, you will hear from God. And will it be perfect, and will you get it right every time? Absolutely not. I'm going to tell you this. I can remember significant times in my life where God spoke to me. I remember exactly where I was when I was praying, and I was actually working out and praying, and God spoke to me in a whisper, in a still small voice, nothing audible. But I was working at a bank, and God spoke to me that my personal business, my gym business, my personal training business was going to be what God had for my life. And I rode on that still small voice, and I started a business. By faith, I started a business that God has sustained for over 20 years now from hearing a still small voice. And I would encourage you to seek God in those areas, to seek God and see which way He's directing you. He may be speaking to you to venture out, to do something different. And it should line up with Scripture. I know our friend Dan. I have a picture of Dan here. This was Thursday, and Dan left Friday. So I wanted him to say goodbye to you all. And I was going to have Dan